We are so very grateful to have Dr. John Wallace with us today, who will deliver our final presentation. John is a mortgage manager, originator, tutor, teacher, and servant at heart with over 25 years of successful sales, marketing, and community development experience. He completed his PhD in industrial and organizational psychology, involving research in trust, leadership, organizational culture, and the socioeconomic impact on organizational performance. John is a volunteer at First Church of God and has originated mortgages and advised clients in our community on home financing since 1998. John was with us in 2020 at our first Show Me the Money Day, and we are elated to have him here with us again as he brings a message to you about overcoming what life throws us. John?
My name is John Wallace. You can call me John, you can call me Dr. Don, you can call me just about anything. I will answer almost any day. In starting today, and it's nice to be back, though I'd much prefer to be in a room where we were together and I could see you face to face and we could look each other in the eyes. I'm going to say, you want to take some notes. I'm going to ask some questions. You can use them in the chat. You can use the question and the answer section, and Lexi will help me get to those and make sure I don't miss any of them. But we want to be open, honest, and non-judgmental with each other, because to be honest, none of us have the right to judge anybody else. The only person you have the right to judge is essentially yourself. Occasionally, I might mention God. Occasionally, I meant drop a swear word or two, too. And you might say, well, if you believe in God, you can't swear. And that's bullshit. Can we communicate with each other? This is not a lecture. We're not in a class, right? This is not about me just spitting things out at you. I want to hear some questions from you, and I want us to have somewhat a conversation. So please do use the chat room. I can also, as my graduate or undergraduate students, when I was teaching more often than I am right now, would tell you I can talk for hours. So let's use the chat room or the Q&A feature. A chat button should be on your screen, something that you can see clearly. What do you want to learn in this next 50 minutes or so? One or two sentences at the most, and then let's not make any comments about what anybody else puts and they want to learn, okay? Some quick questions to think about, and again, if we were in the room, we'd raise hands. You can raise hands in this as well. How many of us have children? Mine are mostly grown, 31, 29, and 22 now. How many of us work multiple jobs? I do work multiple jobs. How many of us have other family members living with us who are not, spouse, partner, or kids? Have you had a bad boss ever in your life? Or maybe you actually have a bad boss now. There seem to be a lot more of them out there than there are good ones, as it were. This is kind of important. Do you have a shoulder to cry on? Are you feeling tired and stressed, particularly over what we've all walked through and are walking through over this past year? And yeah, as more people get vaccinated and we start to open up society a little bit more, but still the stress of life, the stress of the pandemic, the stress of everything going on generally in our lives or other family members' lives, probably weighing on most of us. And do you have change in your pocket? And here's why I mentioned that or asked that in particular. I think I have, hang on a second here, 52 cents. So you realize if you have any change in your pocket, even if it's only a couple of pennies, that you are in the top 1% of income earners in the world, globally, not in this country, of course. I don't think Elon Musk is sitting in on our session today. So again, I'm looking for ways to help my students deal with so many life issues they are dealing with at this time at a community college. There's a good question. We're all going to work on that, and we all need to. So please feel free to share something that helps me focus on helping you get to where you want to get to, which is really part of my purpose in life. So brief background on me. Those are the three sons, by the way. And this may be a familiar story to people you know or people in your family. As a pre-teenager, I started smoking and drinking and doing drugs in that early 12 to 17 age group. It was a way of self-medicating, you know, among other things. And of course, that interferes with your brain development, your growth development, it'll interfere with your relationships all over the place. Way back in the early 80s, after high school, and I went to work for Assemblies of God up in Grand Rapids, and you've all seen Myers-Briggs or other types of personality tests. Theirs, of course, relates to biblical things, and their results of that test said I have a Jeremiah personality, which is pretty simple, and many of us might as well, which is everything I see in you is black and white, you know. This is wrong and this is right, and for you that's the way things are, but for me it's all gray. I can do whatever I want, you know. That's kind of a Jeremiah personality. And I think I started, first job of course was newspaper delivery back when we still did that on bikes, as it were, back in Grand Ledge, Michigan. But you know, I've held, well, in the pandemic I'm on my 6th job in the past 12 months. But prior to even now, up until I became self-employed, I never held a job for more than 2 years, in part because of that, again, that Jeremiah personality. You know, I tend to find that the other people I'm working with are unethical, or they promise things and they don't deliver them. And then I'd say F you or something and end up getting fired. So a lot of job turnover over decades. I'm near 60 now. I became self-employed with a mortgage company. I originally went to work for a bank, leaving broadcast media, called DNN Bank, out of Detroit and Hancock, Michigan. And after a while, they were getting bought by Republic Bancorp. We knew they weren't competitive. So, and partners and I took the entire team and we opened up a mortgage company. We were very successful up until the collapse of 2000, started in 2007 into 2008. Now are you sharing screen? Can you see now? Sorry, I went through all of those and I wasn't sharing screen sharing. Anyways, so, in the collapse, of course, we lost everything: bankruptcy, foreclosure. I lost 4 houses at that time that I owned. And I was diagnosed then as a bipolar manic depressive. Now I'm going to say this about that. Diagnosis from anybody is just that. It's a label. Whether you accept it or how you want to deal with that is strictly up to you. I was, of course, medicated for a while in 2008 and 9 as part of that diagnosis, but I found that the medication made me not care about anything or anybody. So I stopped and worked through, in the economic collapse. I did 89 credits in 6 months in class to get my bachelor's degree, then went right into the master's, because when we got married and started having children at a younger age, finishing school at that time just wasn't possible. You had to work, right? So I worked 7 part-time jobs in 2008 and 2009 after I got the bachelor's degree. That includes writing for the Herald Palladium, filling in for Midwest Family Broadcasting, cashier at Myers, doing some bridges out of poverty work for the Community Action Agency, Southwest Michigan Community Action Agency. Whatever it takes to make things get through. We also learned, of course, during that time, if you don't know, or if you need them, where all the food banks are in Berrien County, you know, where you can get help. And managed in between 2009 and 2019, we did have a place to live after we lost the house. I had a stepfather-in-law who bought a house and I land contracted it from him. But in 2019, I paid off his land contract, got a mortgage through Honor Credit Union, though, you know, I'm not sure how relevant where I got it is. But the week after I paid off the mortgage, my wife decided that we didn't need to be married anymore. So because we didn't know anybody in her family money. So I became homeless essentially. Slept in my office at work for 2 months, then found a place to rent out in Coloma, but it had water and mold. It was a basement apartment through that entire time, and was there until last March when I lost a position due to a former employer and became unemployed again. So moved back into the house that we used to own, that I had spent all of December of 2019 and January of 2020 fixing to put it back on the market to sell. And of course, we had the pandemic last year as well. I can't tell you how many times I had to reach out to friends or family or church for food, for gas money to be able to get somewhere while looking for work. Took a job in Holland for a while that didn't work. But through all of that, I think, and there were some family members who could tell you that there were some absolute times last summer in this pandemic, you may have felt it too, that you were just going to give up. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. You know, I remember sending a text one evening that said, "I'm not sure why I'm here on this earth anymore." You know, and I can tell you that the prayers and the support that I got back immediately from that helped move me beyond that feeling. So again, this would be more related to, and Lexi, I can't see, let me see if I can pull something down here so I can see the chat. There it is. The chat, right? Some questions is for you to think about in your notes, right? Do you have an actual budget? Do you know where you're spending your money and where it goes? Do you have a career goal? Do you have a financial goal beyond just the budget of trying to have enough money to make ends meet and, you know, have some spare money for when the tires go flat on the car or the brakes go out, because guess what they do? You know, do you have a plan to move you beyond where you are today towards tomorrow? Because most of us end up living in the tyranny of the moment, the things that overwhelm us and keep us from sleeping at night. You know, if we're a parent, worrying about our kids and school and their grades and their health, and am I going to get COVID? You know, if your parents are elderly, worrying about their health and are they going to get sick? And of course, for many of us, I mean, 60% of Americans don't have $500 in savings, right? That's a majority of the country. We don't have $500 saved up, you know. So if something goes wrong with the car, then we got to make the choice between, do I fix the car so I can get to work, or do I buy groceries so the kids can eat? Okay, those things can be highly overwhelming. But a couple of life quotes that work for me outside of scriptural things. Edward Everett Hale, I am only one, but I am one. I can't do everything, but I can do something. And I won't let what I can't do keep me from what I can do, right? Yogi Berra, if you don't know where you're going, you'll probably end up somewhere else. We often do end up somewhere else. We should have taken a right and we zigzagged and then took a left. And good old Dr. Seuss, who had a lot of truth in those books. Some of them not so good, but most of them very good. You have brains in your head, you have your feet on you have feet in your shoes, assuming you have shoes, and you can steer yourself in any direction you choose. So that, for those of us who are depressed, or for those of us who just get to that feeling, overwhelmed feeling, there's a whole series of D's that lead to that, right? We have debt loads. I was reading a story last night about Peoria, Illinois, and how bad it is in Peoria for many families, because they're off the grid of not being able to get any of that COVID relief money that's been shared. And they don't, you know, they can't hang on to jobs because the jobs aren't there necessarily because of COVID, or they're just washing dishes for $10 an hour, you know, but maybe they weren't getting paid in cash, and so they weren't turning tax returns, so the federal government isn't sending, you know, relief money to them. Divorce, I can tell you that in my divorce, I lost all the assets and got all the debt. You know, that's the nature of divorce, but it also makes you feel like those of you who've been through it, like you're not worthy to be with anybody. Sickness and disease, of course, we're in a pandemic disaster. If, you know, we don't, where we live here in Michigan, and I'm not in Berrien County anymore, but tornadoes generally is what we would see. But, you know, hurricanes, tornadoes down east, the flooding that's happened in other parts of the country. Lose a family member. God forbid any of us lose lose one of our children. That's my biggest fear in life, is that one of my children are gone before I am. We live in a highly distracted world. You know, many of you have kids, teenagers know that in particular, have to be entertained all the time. Squirrel, squirrel, rabbit, and we lose focus on what's going on, particularly if we're self-medicating. Distractions become higher, disinterest in what we're supposed to be doing and what we need to take care of, and denial, you know, for the condition that we're in can impact all of us. So depending on where your goals are, right, and what your objectives are, I start every day with 4 really simple goals. The first one is to wake up breathing, because if I'm not, then, you know, then nothing else kind of matters. And currently walking, but because I can still, but it's not required. Because if I was in a wheelchair, I can still type, I can still speak, I can still move around. To seek and find hope, you know, every day, every morning, to find something to look forward to find something to feel positive about, because otherwise the things that keep us from sleeping at night, you know, we're trying to fall asleep and we're worried about how are we going to pay the bills, or, you know, is a collection agency coming after us, or am I going to get downsized on the job, or, you know, is mom healthy enough, because she's living in a retirement home and those homes have more cases of COVID than lots of other places, you know. That stuff can turn around to us waking up in the morning, and that's what we're still thinking about. Plus we didn't sleep well, it keeps us from sleeping. The third thing is to make a positive difference in someone else's life. You know, and you may have done this depending on your age when you were in high school or college, you know, or sometimes for projects at work, you stay up late at night. If I just study all night, I'm going to get an A on that test tomorrow morning, right? Well, the science is actually that if you stay up all night, you lose half of your mental capacity the next morning. So you're dumber and not going to do better on the test because you stayed up all night studying it. Well, in the same way for our neurology, the way our brains work, if you like a reward in the sense of you like chocolate, or you like cupcakes or a piece of cake, right? That gives you a positive feeling. It releases chemicals in your brain that says, hey, this is good. If you buy a lottery ticket and you win $5, you know, you feel good. If you're self-medicating in the sense, whether you're taking prescription drugs beyond what they're, you know, what's been prescribed, or you're doing cocaine or heroin or smoking pot or, you know, drinking alcohol, there's a point where that feels really good, you know, and again, those same chemicals are released to say, hey, this is a good thing. Now, of course, you can cross a line real easy on that and become self-destructive. But here's the thing. That same positive feeling, those same chemicals, endorphins, get released in your brain if you go volunteer at the soup kitchen. If you help a neighbor change a tire on their car. If you help somebody else with their homework. In this country in particular, we have forsaken we are kind of meant to take care of each other, to serve each other, to help each other. And we've supplemented that, which is probably why all of us were created, with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, if you will, right? So you know, every day I'm looking to make a positive difference in somebody else's life, whether I knew them or not, whether they were on my calendar or not. And then the last one is to control my own self-destructive behavior, I'm probably the farthest along I've been in that in my 58 years. So where do you start? People ask, how do I, how do I start to make these changes in my life that I need to make? And the simple thing is you got to start here. And you start today, right? Every evening, every morning, every evening, what am I grateful for? What am I thankful for in my, prayers as I'm putting my head on the pillow and trying to go to sleep? I say prayers of gratitude. This PDF, I think, is available out within the Zoom, and it's a 30-day challenge, right? Because it takes 30 days to form a habit. So first is, every day I'm going to do X. And when I put an X in the box for 30 days, I get a pony, a taco dinner, my life back. How about my life back? Or something else of your choice in there as well. And then you need to start looking at what resources do you have. By the way, I do see a couple of questions up here, and I certainly would say that more questions can be asked as well. But here's the thing. Particularly if we're living in, again, that tyranny of the moment, that's how Bridges Out of Poverty would describe it, where life is so overwhelming for all the things we think we have to do, all the things we know we have to do. The minute you fix a tire, the brakes go out. You buy a bunch of groceries and the refrigerator dies. Some of these things are just life and mechanicals, and you can't control them, right? And you get up every morning and you've got 10 things on your list. Maybe you've got 20 things on your list to do. But guess what? 20 new things are coming in during the course of the day. And you have to decide which of those need to be accomplished now of the 40. And it's okay that you can still only do 20 of them or 10 of them, however many whatever your capacity is, right? And then let them go, knowing that tomorrow's another day we'll face and we'll work on them then. But we often don't think of all the resources that we have. How's your emotional stability? I have been in the past 9 months in particular, because I talk to a lot, it's not because of the PhD in psychology, it's just because of the nature of who I am. I'm a servant at heart. So I talk to a lot of people who work in nonprofits or in management or in leadership, or have lost a spouse, or have, some other crisis in life going on, but they still have jobs and responsibilities, right? So how's your emotional health? Because if you're not taking care of you, you cannot possibly take care of everybody else in your life that you need to. And that includes your staff and your teams, right? If you're a manager, if you're a boss, if you have responsibilities not only for your family, but for other people in the organization that you work for. Some of us are really smart in some areas of life, like we might be a really good engineer, but we're not necessarily good at personal communication. So everybody has different skill levels and skill sets. What are your mental strengths? Do you have a spiritual side that you can call on? Or a relationship, for instance, again, with a spiritual organization. I want to talk sometime about mine, in particular, and what I believe and why. I'm not hard to find on LinkedIn. Physically, I can tell you right now at 58 that my knees and my back don't want me. And the last time I was looking for a job in this past year, even, I thought, well, I can always go back to work for Myers because I know they're hiring and they're paying $15 an hour and there's a store a mile away, right? Maybe it's 2 miles away, but however, but my back and my knees definitely don't want me stocking shelves anymore. It's not something I could do. How strong are you financially? What support systems do you have? And financially, we might be struggling. Most of us in the country are financially struggling with all of these, actually. What are the support systems that I have around me? And do I know what support systems are around me? Do I have role models in place? It doesn't matter. You can be president of the United States together, pick one, doesn't matter which president it is, not a political statement. They still need role models. They still need advisors because nobody knows and can do everything. Great article that got sent to me by my mom this morning from David Brooks, a very good writer. He's had some rough times in his life too, even though he's got a number of books out. David Brooks, that link is up at the top of the chat. Wise people don't tell us what to do. Our role models, right? That we know and can speak with anyways. We might say my role model is Indira Gandhi. Well, I can't talk to Indira Gandhi, you know. But again, wise people don't tell us what to do. They start by witnessing our story. They take the anecdotes, the rationalizations, and the episodes we share with them, and they see in us a noble struggle. They see our narratives, both from the inside as we experience them, and from the outside as we can't. They see the ways we're navigating the dialectics of life and the things that come in front of us all the time, right? We can't control. Intimacy versus independence, control versus uncertainty, and understand that our current self, where I am today, is just where we are right now. It's part of a long continuum of growth, because where you are today is not where you have to be tomorrow. So other than the responsibilities, of course, and societal norms, you know, I have friends, and this is part of language barriers that would exist within our country. Some of them may be ethnic in nature, those language barriers, but some of them are just class-like as well, because we do have social classes in this country. We just don't want to talk about them, right? So I know I have friends where FU is just a greeting. It's a way of saying, how are you? I know other people where if you say that you just lost the job. You know, so you have to understand that there are different societal norms depending on the circumstances and where you are. What strengths do you have? And I mean, you seriously need to write these down. You need to take some time. Are you resourceful? Are you resilient? My mom would say I'm resilient. There's several other people probably say I'm resilient too. I don't quit. Are you creative? Sometimes creativity can get you into trouble, but sometimes creatives helps you find a way to work when the car's dead. Are you organized? Can you be good at helping other people get organized? Are you good at technology? Are you empathetic? Are you a good listener? Are you physically strong? There are all kinds of other strengths that you may possibly have that you're not giving yourself credit for, right? Because we tend to beat ourselves up too much and say, well, you know, I'm just not good enough. Well, you are good enough. You need to map out your social network, okay? Family members. And I would venture to bet that every one of us has family members we need to not be spending time with, you know. If your family member is self-medicating, probably best not spend time with them, you know. If they are completely polar opposites of you and what they believe and think and how they believe, and they're not positive influences on you, and probably best not spend as much time with them. You know, in counseling session years ago, I had a psychiatrist tell my sons and I, here, as soon as you can, you get out of that house and get on your own. And you communicate with them on holidays and birthdays. Maybe you see them there, check in once in a while, but you spend as little time with that person as possible, because they have a negative, angry personality that's never going to change unless they choose to change, and they're hurting you. So friends too. I mean, you know, again, you have friends you should spend time with because they help build you up. They might be a shoulder that you can cry on or need to cry on. You know, they might also just be, you know, we play cards together. We have friendly conversations. Doesn't have to be serious all the time, of course. But you also, you know, if I was a heroin addict and my friends are heroin addicts, I can't have those friends anymore if I'm going to stop. You know, the same thing with alcoholism or any other substance abuse. Community. I have spent a good near 30 years working with the Community Action Agency, the United Way of Southwest Michigan, previously Cornerstone Alliance, Cornerstone Chamber Services, all of those kind of things. You know, are you aware of the assets that you can pull in when you need help, when you need advice, and what's available to you within the community. Not driving to South Bend or Grand Rapids or Chicago to find these things, but available within your community, sometimes within walking distance. As I mentioned before, a spiritual one is very important to me, but what that spiritual network and relationship and support group for you is like is up to you. That's your choice. Nobody can say you have to believe like I believe. If you hear that, you probably ought to run away. Again, mentors. We all need mentors. Some may be family members, some may be friends, some may be a pastor or a priest, however, you know, and neighbors. You know, our grandparents, our parents grew up in a different era where you knew your neighbors, you know, and you could trust them, and you might have, you know, block parties if it was that kind of block and you weren't separated by, you know, a mile and a half because it was all farm area, right? You know, and we have lost that sense of neighborhood in our country and in our communities, in part because there's so much, I will just say so much evil, if you will, out there in the place, and we get scared. You know? Well, your neighbors probably could use some of the skills and gifts you have, and you need some of the skills and gifts they have as well. So map out your network, start writing those things down. First steps, you know, what's the quote? The first, that's from, it's from the newsroom, I believe. The first step to changing and understanding that there's a problem is admitting that there is one. You know, and it may not be a problem. It may just be a serious problem. It may just be something you want to change in your life, right? Well, write down your strengths and write down who you think your network is. And reach out to a couple of key people. Years ago at First Church in a class, we were doing a study where you write down your strengths, and you had to go ask 4 people what they thought, your 3 people, however, what they thought your strengths were. And take a look at what they honestly said about you. You know, John is good at this, but John is really weak in this area. You know, some of that can be difficult, but again, if I'm going to make a change, I got to be able to admit that I need to change something. So there is an Excel spreadsheet I uploaded earlier, right? Write down every dime you spend for a week, maybe a month. You'll be surprised at the places you spend money that you probably shouldn't. You know, I used to do drive-through coffee every day on the way to work. $3, $5, Big B could be $8, right? You know, it doesn't have to be Big B. I'm not picking on an employer or a company, but on the same time, I do own a thermos and I do have a coffee pot, and if I drink it at home, I'm not spending that kind of money. And I can generally eat healthier and better if I do take the time to cook it myself and if I drive through somewhere. In our hectic lives, well, driving through these days might be a little scary. So, and then for yourself, set 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, and 4 week goals. Okay. This is a movie line. Aim big, miss big. You know, if you're hunting bear and you're trying to hit them in the heart, you know, that's a big goal, very narrow target, you know, and if you miss, you're going to have an angry bear. You know, on the other hand, if you set for yourself small goals, simple goals, hit the target, you know, I would say, for instance, for most of us, the first goal you ought to set is I'm going to spend 10 minutes today. I'm going to find 10 minutes today to take care of me, to do, you know, whatever you need to do, whether it's a little writing, a little reading, a little, well, I don't know, was it 38 degrees out again today like it was yesterday? Something, take a walk outside that helps you feel good and feel better and is not detrimental to you or anybody else. And we are really good at this in this country. That's why if everywhere you go, you see those storage bins, places, hey, storage room, you know, you can store your clutter here. Now, unfortunately, again, since the pandemic and the level of poverty in this country, there are people who that's where all their belongings are because they don't have a place to live and they're living out of their car, you know, the storage rental places. But if you start walking through your stuff in your space wherever you live, right? I bet you have stuff you don't need, hanging on to clothes that don't fit anymore because you might be able to fit into them again. Well, maybe that's, maybe you do need to keep some of those. But some of that stuff you can donate to Goodwill or the Salvation Army or your church or whoever, wherever, right? It's not hard to find places that are accepting and looking for donations. And the less cluttered your life is, the simpler getting to where you want to be gets to. There aren't any simple answers. In fact, somebody, as I was talking to Barbara and Lexi a week or two ago, the minute somebody says to me, well, John, you just need to do A, B, C, and D, probably the minute I'm running in a different direction, right? Because it wasn't my idea. And I don't believe in it yet necessarily. Now, they may be right. I may need to do A, B, C, and D. But unless it becomes our idea, unless we believe that that's the possibility and that we can get there, and here's the steps to get there, knowing that you're going to take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, as Bruce Springsteen said in a song years ago, and lots of other famous people have said, you're not getting anywhere. There's no quick answers. There's no quick fix. There is no instant solutions. But within the core of your being, within the experiences of the life that you have lived so far, both in things that you've seen and learned that you want to be like or want to do, and the things that you've seen and heard or participated in that you don't want any part of, you have the strength and ability to get to the next level, whatever that level is for you. I can't tell you. But you need to find that. And you need to ask for help, because none of us do it on our own. You say, well, of course, Tiger Woods had a big accident driving 85 miles an hour on a curve, not real bright. But, golfers or singles tennis players, they just work by themselves. They're on their own. No, they're not. They have coaches, they have trainers, they probably have a dietitian, they have a whole series of people behind them that help them achieve, right? The famous quote from Michael Jordan. Yeah, I won 7 championships, however many he ran, and I took 26 however many game-winning shots, but I missed that shot 3,000 times. I've lost thousands of games. The reason that he succeeded, and that quote from him, is because he doesn't quit. He just gets back up and keeps going. Cynthia Basin is somebody out of California, and she's a motivational speaker and a number of other things. She can be found on LinkedIn. She posts these things that she makes on a regular basis. We are the author of our own story. Today is a new page. You are the CEO of your life. Take control of where you put your valuable time and energy. It is precious. And you are important. And you have value. So don't let other people tell you you're not. Don't put up with it. There's a question up here, wondering how to help staff and myself manage the stress of these times and how to start the conversation. It is real easy, in passing people or on the phone or even in these video conferences, right, to say, how are you today? And then we stand and answer, I'm fine, or I'm okay. Well, that's not a serious question, and it's not a serious answer. A serious question more for somebody to start those conversations is, what's keeping you up at night? How are you sleeping? Those are 2 different questions, right? What are you really worried about? Depending on the relationship, some folks aren't going to tell you, so they don't want to share. They don't want to be that vulnerable. If you're in a leadership position, you have to be that vulnerable. And if you don't get a response from them, I would say you need to turn around and say, because I know we're all walking through a difficult time. And I'll tell you, what really concerns me right now is my brother, because he's really struggling with depression and he lost his job, or, And you have to share some of your heart and your soul with them. It doesn't mean we're, given a major testimony that reveals all our sins. Okay. And you can't say, well, I don't have any, because everybody's got something, in their background. Just we put scales, human scales on that vary them. But you have to be vulnerable. And I'll go back to what I said earlier about neurology too, right? We've substituted all these other things, particularly in our society, sex, drugs, rock and roll, greed, the importance of money, and we've placed that ahead of the importance of people. And if somebody really feels that you're sincere on asking them what's going on, we see it on a regular basis where, folks are not performing up to what they're capable of. And sometimes you have to confront them in that sense, Martha, that says, okay, I know you can do better than this. What's going on? Tell me what's happening so I can, I can't solve all your problems, but I might be able to listen. That is the first part of wisdom. That's the first part of being a mentor to somebody else, is the ability to listen. And then instead of saying, you just need to do A, B, C, and D, you might say, well, have you thought about trying X? And, let them think about that and stew about that for a little bit. And a nice anonymous quote there. Thank you. Well, let's try that for 30 days. Oh, by the way, I have this PDF over here. I downloaded from Summit. Go post it up on your wall. I have to, I am not homeless at the moment, though technically I could be. I can't afford rent for an apartment at the moment. I'm certainly not buying a house until after I recover from the divorce and those things. And that's not a complaint. That's just the nature of life and what happens to couples after divorce, right? So, but I have somebody who has offered me space and has helped lift me up. They are a real blessing. But on a regular basis, I have to say to them, because they're working on their PhD in a graduate school now. They have a 13 and a 16-year-old who are high maintenance, both boys. Lost their husband over a year ago to cancer. I have to say to them, slow down. You got to go take care of you. You can't take care of your kids. You can't do good work for graduate assistants, of course, are working for the college as well as taking classes. You can't do good work here. You can't do good work there. You can't take care of them if you're not taking care of you. And I force her to stop being a workaholic, a doaholic, a thinkaholic. She's a retired teacher, so she's always thinking up new things that could be done or should be done. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's possible. Just slow down, breathe. Other questions? Yes, we sometimes forget to take care of ourselves, particularly if you've got that servant at heart attitude, as I do. Somebody reached out to me asking for an appointment next week. And I said, okay, well, here's my normal life. I work for the mortgage company I work for from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, then a couple hours Saturday or Sunday, depending. 4 to 10 p.m. I tutor nationally in a variety of subjects online. It's an additional income source to help reduce debt, except when I'm at board meetings or at board meeting functions, or last night was the beginning of AYSO soccer, and I got roped is not the right term, into coaching again this year. I've done it before, and there were all these kids who wanted to play, including hers, but nobody was stepping up to coach. Well, if you're not coaching, or you're not, I'm gonna stop sharing the screen there. If there's no coach, you can't have a team. So I said, yeah, I can do that. And then every other Sunday now, as opposed to years of every Sunday, I volunteer at church and help in those capacities where possible. And And once in a while, I get to read a book or write. You know, I am a workaholic, and I'm a servant at heart, and so I just keep serving. And as you said, from somebody said over there and up in the, I have multiple monitors. We do forget to take care of ourselves. Fortunately, my mom, who lives in San Diego on a regular daily basis, says, "Are you taking care of yourself, John?" So, you know, I try.